It's just a huge honor for me today to podcast interview Robbie Kellman Baxter, the leading expert on how to apply membership and subscription models to build engagement, loyalty, and recurring revenue in nearly any business. As the principals at Peninsula Strategies, LLC, she has advised organizations across over 20 industries on how to leverage subscription pricing, digital community, and freemium content to build deeper relationships with the people they serve. Her clients have included healthcare organizations and professional service providers, as well as industry leaders such as Netflix, Electronics Arts, and the Wall Street Journal. As author of The Membership Economy, Find Your Super Users, Master the Forever Transaction, and Building Recurring Revenue, a book that has been named a top 5 marketing book of the year by Inc.com, Robbie coined the popular business term membership economy, which is now being used by organizations and journalists around the country and beyond. A sought-after writer and keynote speaker, Robbie has presented to alumni organizations at Stanford, Harvard, and Haas, H-A-A-S associations, including the American Nurse Association, the American Society of Association Executives, and the American Board of Internal Medicine. She has been quoted on business issues in the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times, Consumer Reports, and has had pieces published in HBR.org, CNN.com, and the Journal for Quality Participation. My God, it's an honor that you would come and talk to a bunch of damn dentists with all your qualifications. It was our podcast we did with a, let me see what I did. Who was the, what episode was it? It was with Ken Newhouse, man who started in chiropractic. He was episode 1043. He said you were the best guest he ever had on your podcast. And the reason I wanted to get you on is because there's so many reasons I want to get you on, but some of them are like, I noticed the Fortune 500, they want customers for life.
Yeah.
And I notice all the dental offices and chiropractors, they're always wanting a new patient. And when you start doing the math, you start saying, okay, if your hygienist worked 40 hours a week, 50 weeks a year, she only works 2,000 hours a year. She can only see 1,000 people twice a year. But you get 25 new patients a month for cleanings, well, then every 3.5 years, you'd have another hygienist. But you go to that dental office 40 years later and you say, where are the 12 full-time hygienists? They say, oh, actually, I need new patients. I only have one hygienist. So nobody keeps their customers. And then what really blew my mind the most and what you have written so eloquently about is here you have Disney and Netflix with the same valuation on Wall Street. And one of them is old school with theme parks and movie theaters and Disney ships. But they're boom and bust. They'll dump $100 million into a movie, but they got to get $300 million out of it, but the next one's bust. And then Wall Street looks at these reoccurring revenues like Netflix, where every month they just ding a gazillion people for $10, myself included. And that predictable reoccurring revenue, as opposed to your sales team having a good month selling a bunch of ads, the next month they don't sell any ads, and boom, bust, boom, bust, boom, bust. Whereas that predictable reoccurring revenue, whether it's Spotify or Netflix or music, that's what you speak about. How does this all apply to dentistry?
Yeah, well, I think it applies perfectly. The way I think about it is, you start by saying, what is it that my customers, that the people that come to see me want, my patients want? They want healthy mouths. They want to look good. And do they want that for a transaction? No, they want it for the rest of their life. Right? What they really want is to never have to worry again about that part of their life and have somebody that they trust who's just going to handle it. So if dental practices could focus on helping people achieve their objective, which is a healthy mouth, a beautiful smile, in the most painless way possible, I would probably add for most people would be willing to just keep paying on a regular basis and say to their dentist, tell me what I need to do. Tell me how often I need to come in, and make it as easy as possible. In fact, darn it, come to my house and that would be great. But, it's really changing that focus from being transactional to being a membership. And I think that it works. It's actually a very easy model, I think, for a dentist to apply. The principles make a lot of organic sense.
Well, you're in Menlo Park, you're in Silicon Valley, you work with these high-tech firms, but you
Hmm.
said a dentist, you don't care if they come to their house. The founder of Facebook, Mark Zuckerberg, his dad's a dentist, and his dental office was in his house.
Hmm.
Mark Zuckerberg grew up, first floor was dad's dental office,
Awesome.
and the second floor was front room, living room, the kitchen. The third floor, they all slept upstairs. But they do, I love the way you say they don't want dentistry for a transaction.
No.
They want whiter, brighter, sexier teeth for the rest of their life.
For the rest, and that's the thing, is if I come into the dentist, that first meeting, because we were talking a little bit about acquisition, right? A lot of dentists are very focused on, I got to get new patients, I got to find new patients, I'm going to do this campaign. I see it all the time on the community, right? I see on Dental Town, here's how to get new patients, here's how to do this campaign or that campaign and get people in the door. And that's great, and that's part of any good business practice. But the real magic is in retention and engagement. It's how often does that patient come back to you? How loyal are they? And how willing are they to refer other people to your practice? I would argue, I would suggest that a really good dentist might not even need to have any marketing activities because his current patients understand, or his or her patients understand the value proposition and what they're getting so well that they're spreading the word. And not just spreading the word, but bringing in the right kind of patients. I did some work with a dental pain management company. And one of the things we talked about was the fact that for them, their best customers, the dentists that they really wanted to sell to, were dentists who were differentiating, for example, around pain management, saying, we're a pain-free shop. Come to us. We really care about that. That's an area of focus and expertise for us. So they have a more targeted patient base, but you can be sure that those patients are going to talk about it, right? Because they're going to say, "Oh, I hate going to the dentist. I'm afraid of needles. I'm afraid of pain." But these guys seem to really know what they're doing, and it's a pleasure to go. So
And
having that
it's
focus, yeah,
also when they do research, and there's a ton of it out there, that when I market to you and you don't know me from Steve, and you come in, you'll buy $1. But if one of my existing patients comes in, they'll buy three because we sell the invisible. I mean, you know the difference between an iPhone and a Samsung. I don't have to tell you the difference between Nike and Reebok. But when your engine light comes on and some man tells you that you have to have a whole new transmission, and I'm sitting here, I grew up with 5 sisters, played Barbie dolls till I was 12. I mean, I just have to trust you. And when your
yes,
dentist tells you you have 4 cavities, you have to decide, do I trust this dentist? And, and,
absolutely.
and that's why keeping an existing patient is actually, forget the marketing costs, they buy 3 times more just because they trust you.
Right. Oh, yeah. And it costs, I mean, they'll buy more. They'll be easier to work with, as you pointed out, because if I come in for my dental appointment and I'm still in that I don't trust you mode, I'm going to give you a hard time. I'm going to ask a lot of questions. I'm going to hem and haw. I might wait too long for the treatment, which creates more problems later, which I'll blame you for. I mean, there's just a whole bunch of bad things. But if I trust you and I say, look, I'm not a dentist. I'm not an expert. Tell me what I need, charge me a fair price, and I'll do it. That's the kind of relationship that is, not only is it most lucrative for the dentist, but it's such a joy for the patient to say with pride, I trust my dentist. She's taken really good care of me for the last 20 years. She takes good care of my kids. She takes good care of my spouse, takes good care of my mom.
And I also think long-term staff helps with that. I mean, you come in every
Yes.
time you come in, it's the same stuff. Like people will tell you, their actions and words are so different. They'll say to you like, "Well, I'm a really good shopper. I'm really good. I shop well." Okay, well, how many different grocery stores you go to compare prices? Or,
Right.
and they go to the same grocery store every time because they know where everything is.
Yeah.
And I look at the people that I buy from, that I sell invisible, like I've been using the same auto mechanic across the street from me for 20 years, and we always joke that we're in the same business. We both work with our hands, and I'm working on teeth and he's working on engines, and all of our customers have no idea what's going on. I mean,
Right.
these people come in and say, "Well, why can't you just, spray it with WD-40 and kick it like, my dad?" And they don't understand. And the cars now are so much more complicated. And his whole business, he gave up advertising and marketing years ago, because he says when you people come in, he calls us these people that don't know engines, and anymore he hardly knows the engine because they're so more complicated. And I would say in my lifetime, I'm 56, that the single biggest thing I've seen negative in my half century is the loss of trust. I
Yeah.
mean, I remember when I got asked to go 30 years ago, I'd say, well, the Centers for Disease Control supports water fluoridation with 5,000 studies. And now it's like 1/4 of America. Oh, well, they're just shills. They're just puppets for the pharmaceutical. They probably get paid by the people who sell the fluoride. And you're like, wow.
Yeah.
And then and they say, well, why will all the dentists support it? Yeah, because it makes your teeth weaker, then you'll need to do more dentistry.
Right.
And it's
Right.
like
Right.
really, you think I went to 9 years of college to harm people so I can make money? I mean, so when you have a society that for 25 years has only given Congress an 11% approval rating. In fact, I saw an interesting study. Did you know more people in in autocratic countries like Singapore and China and Russia, a higher percent of the people like their government than in the United States of America? I
Wow,
mean,
that's amazing. Yeah.
this is what we're dying for. We're dying for freedom when more people like the government in Singapore and China and Russia than America. So how does this apply to when we're dentists selling the invisible and we have to have a relationship based on trust, or you're just out the door?
Well, I think trust is all about credibility and relevance. So how do you know if someone's credible? Like if I asked you, how do you know that your mechanic is trustworthy, right? It's he knows people that I know. Maybe it's the school he went to, but more likely, it's the what other people say about him, or it's your own experience. So if you bring that into dentistry, word of mouth is so important. And if your existing members become super users where they explain to other people like, hey, and I'm sure you've had this experience where they're not experts on what you do, but they know just enough to say, I know you don't trust about the fluoride and what they said, the CDC, but you know what? Howard, he's a great guy, and we've been seeing him for 20 years, and I don't know what he does, but it's magic, and my teeth are great, and you should trust him. That's how people trust each other, right? Because somebody they trust, it's like the transitive property of trust. And so once you have that if you're going to start at the beginning and say, what is the most important thing that I do in my practice? It's build those kinds of trusted relationships. Figure out who you can serve well, and then serve the heck out of them. And then make it really easy for them. This is kind of the next step. Make it really easy for your best patients to bring in other people just like them. Ask them for the referral, make it easy for them to make a referral, give them status or recognition for making referrals. All of that builds that kind of flywheel for growth that has the trust built in, like as the secret sauce.
You're a brainiac, man. You went to Harvard University and Stanford University's School of Business. I mean, that's impressive.
Don't hold it against me, please.
I got to tell you my favorite Harvard joke. So if you're international, Harvard and Stanford, Harvard and MIT are in the same city. What is it, Cambridge, Massachusetts?
Yeah.
And Harvard is known for like law and philosophy and English and poetry, and MIT is just known for math and engineering. So there's this guy at a grocery store, he's got 10 items, and he's standing in the 5 items or less lane, and the lady looks at him and says, well, you're either from MIT and can't read, or you're from Harvard and can't count. And you're in Menlo with, you're in Silicon Valley with the smartest minds out there. Do you think these valuations like on Netflix are really worth what an old school Disney company is like? Or do you think this is, do you see, I notice Apple Music. Apple rarely ever makes a mistake, but they looked at their original business model where they were selling me a song to download on my iPhone for 99 cents.
Yeah, it didn't work.
Man, they sure the hell wish they would have just got me for
the subscription.
The subscription model. And I'm starting to see that in dentistry where some dental companies are popping up and saying, look, half the country doesn't have dental insurance.
Right.
So why don't you get them to give you a recurring business model? But what I don't like about those business models is I see it all in dentistry, and dentistry is a cottage industry, and they're not as sophisticated as iTunes and all that stuff. Is they'll do the contract for a year. I'm like, a year, a recurring revenue model. You should ding them every month till they die, because if you put all that effort of your staff talking about it, getting them all signed up, once you get that credit card, you got that money revenue every single month until that credit card doesn't work anymore, which could be a very, very long time. What do you think of every dental insurance in-office dental plan, a year contract that expires in a year, and then they got to start it all over again?
So I'm a fan of the monthly subscription. I'm a fan of optimizing what you offer to those patients based on what they want. So instead of saying, I provide these services, which are really transactions, right? It's saying, this is what you need to be healthy, and these are the things you worry about that you need insurance for. And this is a fixed price for most of it. And you pay every month because you're committed to me, and you should be committed to me until you don't have teeth, or until you don't have a mouth, or until you die. And if it's fair, people will go with it forever. I think having a one-time transaction that's just for 1 year, where people have to re-decide every year, that's a problem. I think about it as the moment when somebody, and you probably have this in your office, when somebody takes off, what I call takes off their consumer hat and puts on their member hat, where they're not looking for alternatives anymore, where they're like, this is my grocery store. This is my dentist. I'm going to go to him, unless he really does something horrible. Unless I learn something terrible, this is where I'm going for the rest of my life. I'm not going to check the prices anymore. I'm not going to look for other options before. That's really that moment of the forever transaction that we should be focused on. And then you asked about Netflix. What they've done that's really smart is you keep layering in value, so that people are subscribing, right? So they have their monthly fee for their dentist, and then there's new stuff coming in all the time. Now we have later hours. Now we come to your house. Now we send you, special products in the mail to keep you healthy. I was just thinking about this, like now we call you once a week to check in and say, hey, are you flossing? What's going on with the flossing? Is that working out? How are your kids doing? It's really focusing on what the patient needs and then figuring out ways to build that into your offer, as opposed to being product centric and saying, these are the treatments we provide, these are the interventions we are trained to do, and that's what we sell. It's a very different way of looking at it. It's very patient centric.
And the two industries that have never been patient centric or customer centric are just government and healthcare.
Yep.
Any way you look at it, like take a line. I could have a pizza delivered in 30 minutes. I've never had to make an appointment to go to Walmart or Fry's or any grocery store. The only time I'm standing in line waiting is when the government's involved or it's healthcare. And raising 4 boys, I can't tell you how many gazillion hours I spent in the emergency room for all their stupid stuff. And every single time I checked in, your name, it's like, what do you mean my name?
I know, that's so frustrating. You're like, you know my name. And
I come here every other month for 20 years and you want to know my name?
Right. And it should be, I think this is a little bit of the Amazon effect, which is that we expect, because we all use Amazon, right? And we know that Amazon makes recommendations for us. Amazon cuts us slack when we say, hey, I bought this product and I actually don't like it and I want my money back. We expect that level of personalization and recognition from every business we deal with. So we walk into the dentist's office and we're like, why do I have to fill out this form? You should know. You should know me. You should know that I don't like this. You should know that I like that. You should, and it's this feeling of, Amazon can do it, so why can't you? And on the one hand, it's much harder for a small business owner to do that because they don't have the sophisticated data systems in most cases. On the other side, it could be easier because they actually know their patients in real life. Right? Like my dentist, I've been seeing my dentist since I was 16 years old, and he sees my mom and my dad and my sister and my 3 kids and my husband. And when I come in, they do not say name. They say, hey, Robbie, how are the kids? How's your summer? Saw your mom yesterday. Feels great. And we all need more of that. We need recognition and we need to feel known. It's like a basic human need, one of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? The feeling of being recognized for who you are and then being recognized for your achievements and contributions. It's something we don't get enough of.
I published your book on Dental Town. I wish you would do an article on this because the culture is so messed up. Like you look at people lecturing in dentistry and posting on Dental Town, and they always talk about the new patient experience. I mean, why would that be different than when you just said when you walk in there, they go, Robbie, what up?
Yeah.
Is it why would a new patient have a different experience than an existing patient? And they're always worried about a DSOs. They're always worried about these big corporate chains, which is hilarious because they're the
Yes.
worst.
Right.
I've sat here I've been watching this for 30 years from Orthodontic Centers of America and all these deals when the patients come back and they say, well, I thought they were cheaper, had better hours, but every time I go in there, it's a different doctor. I had a friend at dinner about 2 weeks ago, and she was teary-eyed because the OBGYN she goes to is gone. And she says, that every time she goes to this place, it's different OBGYNs. Well, she's having a baby and she wants you to be there every month for 9 months. And I mean, can you imagine you met her and then you see her every month and then you're a month away from delivering the baby and now
Yeah.
she's gone?
Well, I had that experience. Like you're preaching to the choir. I was 7 months pregnant, and they said, "Oh, we're looking at your insurance, and it turns out that this doctor can't perform a delivery at this hospital. So, would you like this other doctor now?" And I was 7 months pregnant. I mean, it's a horror. I mean, it's such an intimate thing, and I think having people in your mouth is also a pretty intimate thing. You want to know those people. And so I think that I mean, there are economies of scale to these kind of big corporate systems, but the trade-off is that sense of connection, that sense of personal, the sense of trust. So, if you want to hang out your own shingle, you better be thinking about what your advantages are and delivering on that promise. Know who you are. Know what.
Well, speaking of having children, I have four boys, 22, 24. No, what are they? Yeah, 22, 24, 26. And my 28-year-old turns 29 tomorrow on 9/11.
Wow.
Tomorrow's 9/11. I got to tell you about my 9/11 story. So 9/11 happened. It was first thing in the morning. It was, a couple of days of just profound shock. And it was the third day. He was born in 89. So how old would he have been on the actual 9/11?
Like 12,
Yeah,
89.
the third day I said, I noticed he was really sad and we were having dinner. I said, Eric, is something bothering you? He goes, are we ever going to celebrate my birthday? And I
Aw.
realized, and then we had the birthday stuff, and you just plumb forgot about everything.
Oh yeah, what a day.
Birthday, we had his birthday 3 days late. But I always said that writing a book is like having a baby. I mean, it takes 9 months to,
Yeah,
make a baby. And you wrote
nine
an
months.
amazing book on Amazon. And I can't believe you have hundreds of only 5-star reviews, the membership economy. What are my homies going to read? And why should everybody listening to you right now is a dentist? Why should a dentist go to Amazon.com and buy your amazing book, The Membership Economy? Find your super users, master the forever transaction, and build reoccurring revenue by Robbie Kellman Baxter.
Because it will allow the dentists to do what they do best, which is taking care of patients while making a really good living and not having to worry about marketing at the top of the funnel all the time. It allows you, by focusing on membership and applying some very simple principles, you can create this flywheel for growth through the relationships that you establish. It's really simple. And it's the same tactics that Netflix is using and Salesforce is using, but it can be applied really, really well to a dental practice and results in, predictable revenue, which is, as business people, it's what we all want, to not have to worry about where the next dollar is coming from, not have to worry about lumpy revenue, and to be able to decide on your own, do I want to grow my business? Or do I want to just have consistency over time, but not to be worrying about, every time I bring someone in the door, I have to assume that half of them are going to go out the back door within a year, which, makes it very, very hard to run a good business.
And the endorsements on these books. I mean, the CEO of Weight Watchers. President of Consumer Products for American Express, Six Flags Entertainment, Quora. I'm not sure what that one is. the guy in charge of research and design at Pinterest, which really beat Instagram. And I mean, it was the first photo sharing deal, but they didn't seem to have a reoccurring revenue model.
Right. They were moving towards it. They had built out a fantastic membership, and there were a lot of opportunities to build out the recurring revenue, but they've just gone in a different direction, which, you know, I said was, I didn't agree with, you know, they don't always do what I suggest. But what's interesting is that these principles of membership are working for so many different kinds of businesses. You know, everything, you know, I have a company I'm an advisor to called Fuzzy, which is pet health. And they have veterinarians who come to your house and see your dog a few times a year, and then they send you all the medications, the well pet medications that you should be giving your dog or your cat. And they're growing like gangbusters because they're solving the problem, right? Nobody wants to go to the vet, right? You want to have a healthy dog. You want to feel confident that you're taking good care of your dog. So it's like flipping your model on the head. If you as dentists focus on what are my patients really here for? And a great thing to do is ask them, you know, why do you stop coming in for regular checkups? You know, do you know or care that I use premium pain medications? Do you know that? Do you care? You know, figuring out why do people come to me? Why do they stop coming to me? And if you really understand that, you can optimize your offering to get more of the people that you want, your best patients, fewer of the bad patients that cause all the heartache and the trouble, and you can keep your good ones for longer.
You know, I went to undergrad college. I grew up in Wichita, Kansas, went to Creighton in Omaha for undergrad.
I just have to say one thing. I had the best vacation of my life in Wichita, Kansas. When I was 14 years old, my best friend at that time, her grandparents, the Glickmans, I don't know how big Wichita is, but her grandparents lived there, and they were very involved with the Wichita Arrows baseball team. And we went to those games every night. And then we went to the mall during the day, and Wichita was one of the first places to have MTV. So all we did was watch MTV, go to the mall and the arcade, and go to the baseball games. And it was like heaven. It was. And
the first song was, what was it? Radio Killed the Video?
Video Killed the Radio Star.
Video Killed the Radio Star. You know, love that place. When I went to Omaha, that was where Warren Buffett was. And he came and lectured to our business class. And that was the first sign that I was a complete idiot, because he got 10 points to review his lecture. And I said he was a crazy old man and he was nuts and all this kind of stuff like that, because I was all excited about the Nifty 50, you know, Xerox and IBM. And I asked him about that, and he said, well, you know, if you can't explain it to me on a 5x7 business card, I don't know what you're doing. He said, I don't invest in things I don't understand, and I don't understand any of that crap, and I don't invest in that crap. And looking back, if I would have dropped out of college and gave him my 1-year tuition money and then got a job at the IHOP running the dishwasher, I'd be like 100 times more wealthy right now. And he and Peter Lynch always made a profound deal with me. He said to Omaha, I said, I didn't want to listen to all the idiots on Wall Street and all their voodoo. And Peter Lynch said the same thing, that he would leave Wall Street on Monday morning and he would get a list of all the companies that he was going to think about investing in. Instead of sitting there in Wall Street reading 10Ks and 10Qs, he just packed up his car and he would drive up there unannounced and said, you know, is it clean? Is it nice? Yeah. Was I greeted? Does the CEO make a religion of availability? Did they give me a tour? Were they proud? Yeah. And he said you walk up to these dirty places and no one would wait on you, and the CEO couldn't be found, and nobody knew. And then you get back to Manhattan, all these guys say, oh yeah, but look at their price earnings ratio and look at this and that. And you know, and I also on investment, like your forward to your book was written by the co-founder of LinkedIn. I mean, my gosh. Alan Blue, co-founder of LinkedIn. That's so amazing. But I look at these companies invest in, and it's the same thing. Like, why would you invest in Twitter if you've never given them $1? I've never given Pinterest $1, but LinkedIn, I've given them money. I've given
LinkedIn, I understand. LinkedIn is one of my very favorite businesses.
Yeah, and I give them money regularly. So yeah, it'd have to be a good business. But how could Pinterest be a good business or LinkedIn, or
Twitter.
Twitter, if I've never given them $1, because they don't even know who I am on their site. They never asked me what my occupation was. They never, how could you even target me? When you register on other social media sites, they get a lot of information about you. So they can target about you. And these dentists, they will, back to Peter Lynch going around, I've seen 1,000 dental offices. And I've always told people, you can smell success. You walk into some dental offices, they got the glass wall, the receptionist doesn't even look at you. You go stand at the counter, and you're standing there for like 3 minutes before she even raises her eye to even look at you. And I'm just like, you only see this at the Department of Motor Vehicles and Healthcare. And when you were talking about the vet, I think the average dentist, vet, and chiropractor has 10 times a better game than the average hospital physician.
Oh, definitely.
The physicians are right there with the post office and the Department of Motor Vehicles. And I think that's one of the biggest, hardest sells about when they're trying to, sell socialized medicine. It's like people are thinking, oh my God, when you look at the benefits of it, but they're looking at their experience saying, the last person I want to run the hospital is the guy running the post office, the IRS,
the DMV.
Why is it that no matter when you go to the emergency room, it's 3.5 hours? Couldn't they have figured that out like 200 years ago? Can't somebody from Stanford School of Business just say, well, let's go through your processes? Like when I check in a Hertz Rent-A-Car, the guy's out there, he's got a personal dental assistant, he gets 4 or 5 pieces of data, boom. When you walk into Hyatt or Hilton, they already know who you are.
Well, at Hertz now, you don't even have to, the last time I rented a car, I left the airport, I got on the Hertz bus, they dropped me off at this station, and they said, if you have a gold whatever, if your name's on the wall, pick a car and drive away. And so I didn't even talk to anybody. I just walked around. I was like, oh, I'll take this minivan. I got in the minivan. It reminded me of home, and I drove away. I didn't have to talk to anybody. I didn't have to wait. There's always a better way if you really care about the customer. And the thing that I always say when I'm working, so if I were to work with a dentist, let's say that one of the people listening wanted to hire me, I would start by saying, do you really care about your patients? Are you ready to build it around them being happy as opposed to what's easiest for you? And if they really were, I could help them make a lot more money. But if they're not, there's probably other ways for them to make money, but it's not this way. I think this is one of the most easy and ethical ways to make more money, because you're basically making more money by focusing on how do I give more value to this person who's willing to pay me more money for more value, right? I see my dentist, it just happens, I see him 4 times a year for cleanings, because I want my teeth clean, and he told me 20 years ago that I build up more plaque than the average bear, and so I go all the time, and I recommend them to everybody, because
nice, pretty straight teeth.
Well, thank you for that, orthodontia and all the other stuff. But
and orthodontists even changed. You're out there in the backyard of Invisalign, aren't they? Out there in San Fran. And it's funny because when I was little, just the ugliest daughter who could never get married with her bad teeth got braces. And now everyone gets braces, and they get them 2 or 3 times in their lifetime. I see people dropping $6,500 for braces because she's a woman and she just had this.
She doesn't like the way it looks.
Yeah. And she doesn't like, and the rehab market after a divorce or I'm out here in Phoenix, a lot of retirees. That grandma, as soon as grandpa dies, oh my God, she's got a new haircut, new teeth, bleaching, bonding, veneers. Same with the divorce market. But it's just, but these dentists, they got to care and they got to hustle. And that's the other dilemma about managed care, is because the people like you and me who are just born to hustle, and we're smart and we read and we hustle and we care and we're into it, they all own their own business. Right. Every dental office. And then the ones who I don't want to have any skin in the game. I don't want to take the risk. I just want the 8 to 5 job. I want to go work at the post office. They all go work at McDentals. And then the people that I talk to at McDonald's, they're just like, my God, when they go to a seminar, the McDonald's office manager's like, okay, all my doctors, I force them to go. So they're all sitting there surfing Facebook for 8 hours.
Right.
And then the other dentists who own their own dental office, have skin in the game, they're all sitting in the front row taking notes. And so if you're not into the hustle, if you're not going to work hard and care, I mean, if you just work hard and give a crap, you're
Right.
going to win at this game. It kind of reminds me of a couple of friends of mine that built the largest construction company. I was born and raised in Wichita, Kansas, and the Ken and Dave Wells started their own construction company. And I said to them, I remember when they started, I said, well, what's new in construction? What's going to be your unique selling proposition? And you know what they said to me? They said it was in their first 20 years of life. Construction was this, they didn't have a uniform. They showed up late. They just missed it. They said the customer service is so bad. He said, if we start a construction company where instead of blue jeans and 3 inches of your rear end hanging out and a white t-shirt and being 3 hours late, if everybody showed up in a uniform with a white shirt and a name tag, and we just nailed customer service, we stood behind our work. If one of our electricians came out and did something, and let me just finish that story. And 30 years later, guess what they were awarded? The $1 billion contract to redo the Wichita International Airport, which is now named after Ike Eisenhower. So now the guys own a jet. And he also, you know what he did? He went to K-State. He dropped out senior year because he always wanted to say, I want to be a millionaire, with saying I never graduated from college and have a college degree. So he purposely dropped out senior year, second semester, 2 weeks to go.
Oh my gosh, his parents must have been freaking out.
Have bragging rights, and now he has a jet. Why construction? Because dentists are thinking, well, you need some new technology, you need a laser, you need a CAD cam, you need all this fancy, expensive crap. And they're like, no, you don't. You just need to have customer service.
Yeah. Well, the funny thing, when you said that you need a laser, you need this and that, the funny thing is that most people, and this goes beyond dentists, this is like engineers, this is surgeons, this is, journalists, they think that the problem with their business is the product. If I had better equipment, if I had better facilities, I'd make more money. And the truth is that that's almost never what the customer cares about, right? Once you have the basic needs met, what they really want is the full experience, right? And if you ask them, this is the other really interesting part, if you ask them, or if you just watch them, you can figure out what they want. And it's not, like I think about it with cars, right? I told you I drove a minivan for a long time. And, sometimes it's just about the cup holders. But the engineers who build the cars, they don't want to build cup holders. They want to build awesome engines, right? But if you ask the people that drive minivans, we're like, well, I have 7 kids in the back of the car, and they're all drinking their Slurpees, and we need a few more cup holders. And so you got to ask what people really care about.
I never realized when I gave my first dental lecture that 30 years later, I would have lectured in 50 countries. And it's kind of sad when you live in America, because when you go, I've lectured in Japan and Germany, and when you go to those countries, they're manufacturing, like you go to Honda, it's a square mile, everybody's there, and everybody lives and fraternizes, and they just build the best cars that last forever. Same in Germany. You come to America, and the headquarters of Boeing is in Chicago, but the planes are made in Seattle, and Wichita makes another wing. And you go to the car companies, and they're ordering 30,000 parts from all around the world, and the management doesn't even know. The management can't even make a car. And that's the same thing I see in dental DSOs. I mean, in the old day, if you had a dental office, then everybody was about the dentistry. And I guarantee you, like when you go into dental companies in America, dental manufacturing, and you go into dental manufacturing companies in Japan and Europe, one is like Star Wars. I'll give you another example. I was in Switzerland, Switzerland's half Germany and half France in a nutshell. But you go in there, and America, you'd be in a company, and probably 3 or 4 times a day, someone's going to ask, well, where's the bathroom? So that you asked that one time in Germany, you look down the floor, and that red line is to the front door, that blue line is to the boys' room, that red line is to the girl. Above every light switch is all the everything. But I'll go into those dental companies. I was in one in Switzerland. I said, well, where's your marketing department? I go, we're not American, we're Swiss. We don't have a marketing department. And they had 6 PhDs. And then I was sitting there thinking, hey, I know every company about that size in America, they were about the $100 million range in revenue. And the $100 million range in revenue companies in America, they didn't have a single PhD, but they had a telemarketing room. They had like 30 people dialing for dollars, and some guy standing with a thermostat because our daily goal is like $10,000, you know, blah, blah. And everybody's raw. It's like the Americans can sell anything. The German strategy and the Japanese strategies will make it so good it'll sell itself. And then China's really got to reinvent themselves because they're still in the strategy that we'll just make it so damn cheap. Right. You'll just buy it. If you don't like it, we'll just throw it away. And the Chinese and America and Korea are really second-tier cars, second-tier. Look at Samsung. I mean, go read the reviews on any Samsung refrigerator in America. I mean, they're so bad that when a guy comes to work on your refrigerator, he goes, "Did you even do a Google review? No. Why did you buy an LT?" And your repairman saying, "Just don't buy American or Korean." And you're like, "Well, does Japan make a refrigerator or Germany?" And they go, "Unfortunately not." And I said, "Well, what refrigerators buy?" And he said, "Well, the least crappiest American or Korean refrigerator is a GE." Right. I'm like, "Oh, great. I'm buying the least crappiest refrigerator." And then you're saying, and then doctors say, "Well, you know, I'll be successful. I'll get a $100,000 laser and I'll get this and I'll get CAD CAM and I'll get all this high technology." Hey, how about you just be nice and make it work?
Yeah. Yeah. It's not that hard.
Hustle. I mean, you know when you didn't do the filling right and you need to stop, take it back out and redo it, but you don't. Why don't you do it? Why don't you just make it right?
Right.
So what do you do? What do you do for dentists? You have a book. You lecture. You're an amazing keynote speaker. If you want to see her speak, just go to YouTube. Go to her website. What website do you want them to go to? PeninsulaStrategies.com?
Yeah, PeninsulaStrategies.com.
And where did you get that name, Peninsula Strategies?
Well, I live on the peninsula in California. Silicon Valley is, you know, on this peninsula. San Francisco's at the top, and I'm kind of in the middle. And I'm a strategist. So that's what I've always done, is helped companies and entrepreneurs build their business strategies. So, you know, if somebody wanted to work with me, you know, I would coach them on how to fix or improve their business model by focusing on using membership, tracking data, focusing on who your best customers are, figuring out how to make more of them, making it easier for people to make referrals, figuring out why people leave when they leave. If you told me at the beginning of this conversation that, you know, a lot of people you talk to say, "I still only have one hygienist after 20 years because I lose, you know, every year I lose as many people as I bring in the front door or coming out the back door." So we stand at the back door and we ask people why they're leaving. And then we solve those problems one by one. And, you know, it's not complex. You could probably write it on the back of the napkin like Mr. Buffett, you know, writes his businesses. But it's very, very effective at building recurring revenue. And it makes it takes pressure off of the rest of their systems.
Well, you're talking to a lot of dentists right now. Who would be your ideal client? I mean, they got all kinds of different problems. Who would be your ideal client?
My ideal client is somebody who really wants to optimize their business around the people they serve, who's very passionate about wanting to do a great job and wanting to be recognized for doing a great job. And they want to build a business that serves those people really well. So it might be somebody, you know, in some people talk about like concierge medicine or concierge treatment, but who has like a clear idea, like, I want to focus on a particular group and give them a really amazing experience. How do I do that and make money at it? Mainly what I'd say is the people that I don't want to work with are people who are really focused on short term. I need to make more money this month, and I don't really care what that does next month. That for me, I think both, you know, as a strategist and just as a human being, it's hard for me to want to focus on getting a buck out of somebody when I know it's not in their best interest. I would much rather make money by providing such value that people don't care what the cost is. And that's what I've seen over and over again. When somebody tells you they're leaving you because you're too expensive, they're lying almost 100% of the time. They're leaving you because you don't give them enough value to justify what they're spending. And that's a whole different ballgame, because what that means is you're not giving me something I'm willing to pay for.
You know, dentistry is one of the hardest games, and I can prove it. So many different ways. Number one, you'll never meet a dentist who says, "No, no new patients for me. I've been in business 10 years. I'm in Beverly Hills. I can't service the people I got." They cannot understand you. You don't present the treatment right. You hurt them. It doesn't look right. And then it didn't just stop there. Then the dentist might have pissed them off, or the assistant, or the hygienist, or the personnel. There's so many things that go wrong. And then when you go into the big DSOs, I'll never forget. I was at a DSO one time. It had 36 operatories, and it had a complete department. I thought, oh my God, talk about. I would just quit. Can you imagine driving to work if it had a complaint department and there was some lady in there screaming about how they lost her crown and this is the third time she's been back?
Well, okay,
it's just such a hard game to win. And then one last thing I want to go out is then the other problem is that you can't become a dentist, a physician, or a lawyer unless you were this introvert geek who didn't have a personality in college and lived in a library for 4 years. The people who had a girlfriend and joined a fraternity and went out 3 nights away and actually had a date, those are people persons. But when you line up a room full of dentists, most dentists became a dentist because they didn't have enough personality to become an accountant.
I've worked with accountants.
Yeah,
I've worked with doctors.
Accountants, engineers, dentists, they're all the same mold. They're scientists.
Yeah. But here's the thing. So I work all the time with engineers in Silicon Valley. And it's a very similar thing. If you're in an enterprise software company, they could be complaining because the software was coded wrong, because it was implemented incorrectly, because the sales guy promised something that actually the product can't do, because the sales guy promised something that was supposed to be developed, but it hasn't been developed yet, and it's not the sales guy's fault. There's any number of reasons why they can be frustrated. But the thing you have to do is break down all the reasons people are complaining and fix them one by one. So what do you do when somebody says, the sales guy promised me something and I didn't deliver? Well, you go back and you figure out why that's happening and you fix that. If they say, the same bug in the software is causing a lot of issues, you fix that first. So, I recognize that, in a complex business like dentistry, where you have people that, did not go into, as you said, did not go into dentistry to glad hand and be in sales. They went into, to do their very, sort of technical, medical, scientific work. There's a lot of issues that could get in the way of a patient's satisfaction, but they want to help the patients get better and stay healthy. And so it's just blocking and tackling. Solve one problem, solve the next problem, fix the next problem. If you find that there's a certain group of people that complain the most, figure out how to optimize your practice so that those people don't come anymore, right? Most businesses do that. If you know that, like I worked with a company and they realized that they're, so for example, with the dental pain management company, one of the things that they realized was that some of their dentist clients were not marketing themselves as pain management specialists. So for them, this was just a very, very expensive option. And so what I told them is, stop selling to those guys. Say, if you don't care about how much pain your patients feel, don't buy our products because they're too expensive for you, right? And then if you're not dealing with those people, you can really focus on solving the problems of the dentists who value what you're providing. And I think it's the same thing with the dentists themselves.
I think one of the other funniest things about the dentists is, of all the dentists that I personally know, and I know what they're most passionate about and what they're good at and what they love. Let's say they just love, they're the best on implants.
Okay.
And you go to their website, you'd never even know it.
Right. See, that's such a good point, right? If you're great at implants and you love doing it and it's lucrative and you're the best, people should know that. And you might be building your reputation both with your patients and with your peers and with the people who this is the stuff that I always think about. Like, if I need dental implants, where am I going to go? How am I going to get smart? Like Robbie, tomorrow I find out that I need dental implants. Where would I go to learn about that? Right. And if that's your specialty, you want to make sure that I'm going to stumble across you, either through other, when I ask my friends, they're going to all point in the same direction, or I ask my dentist and my dentist says, that's not something that I really do, but this guy, down the hall is great at it. but you really want to know what you're good at and then make sure people, and certainly on your website, you should have it be, front and center.
And the work that the dentist who put an article in Dental Time magazine, and that's searchable on the web, and they put their own work. I'll never forget. I had this story where I hope this is an inappropriate example, but it was just a true story. This woman wanted to have a breast augmentation, and she was very concerned about who it was. And she asked me if I would go with her to the consultation, and she set up 3 appointments in one day. And the first 2 were in Scottsdale, and the dentist came out there and he showed her a brochure from the American Academy of Plastic Surgery, and was just nice and everything's fine, everything. And you looked at the amenity, and it was just a simple deal, and it was just so overwhelming. She was just shattered by this. She couldn't do it. We went to the 3rd one. And he sat there and got out, this is back in the day, got out 2 35mm carousels of slides and, sat in a room, hit the lights, and just went through case after case after case of his own work. And then I look at my dentist friends who live in a city like Phoenix, Arizona, which has 3,800 dentists, some of the best dentists in the world. And they flew to San Diego or to Utah or whatever, because they were going to a great dentist who's a friend of mine who does the best implants in the world, but they would never know it. But they were Google searching and found this website that showed all these implant cases and they're like, oh my God, that's what I want to do. And then went and paid $25,000 an arch, $50,000 for 2 all-on-4s, and their own damn dentist right in their backyard a mile from their home would do it just as well or better.
Right. Because people don't, what you need to do is make it easy for people to make the best choices. That's really what you're doing. And if you're confident, as a practitioner, you can say, I don't have this expertise, or I'm pretty good, but this other guy is the best because it's all he does. He does 100 a day and I do, 1 a year. And you make those referrals, and then you make sure that people also understand what you do. And you make sure that you ask them the questions. What do you need? What are you thinking about? Because that's another piece of this is letting people know kind of what their options are and how you'd think about it. And being comfortable with them checking out other people, but saying, look, you can go to this dentist in San Diego with the cool website. Let me show you the work that I've done, and here's some ways to evaluate. Here's the kinds of questions you should be asking.
I always tell dentists the most number 1 return on investment, high-tech piece of equipment you could get is just a camera, dental photography. Yeah. That's what Mom wants to do. Mom is on, when I got out of school, she was on the Yellow Pages and asking all the ladies at church and bowling. Now she's on that iPhone and she's visual and she's looking at work and the websites, I would say there's 211,000 Americans who are alive with an active license to practice dentistry. 150,000 would be general dentists, 32 hours a week or more. 30,000 would be specialists, 32 hours a week or more. And I'd say 50% of all those websites are a solid F. They're just an F. And it's so funny when you're like in Kansas City and this lady has to get on an airplane in Wichita, Kansas and fly to Kansas City on Southwest Airlines because she thinks that's the only doctor who does implants or veneers or bleaching or bonding, but she just absolutely couldn't find it in Wichita, Kansas when it has, right, several hundred dentists. So how do you work? How much does it cost? Do you do it over the phone? Do you fly down to the location? What's your regular plan? Is it 1 day, 2 day, 3 day? How do you operate?
So with most people, I work remotely. Especially for solo practitioners with smaller offices. And it usually ranges from like between $5,000 and $20,000 for 6 months. And then there's some where if you have a bigger practice or, you want greater involvement and hand holding. And, I always think of it as that's more reactive. You call me, we walk through things, I give you things to do, you come back and tell me how they went. The other side, which gets more expensive, is if you want me to come up with the plan for you and do the implementation.
And do you like doing this? I mean,
I love it. I love it. Because the results, you see the results right away. And so for me, I feel like it's a win. Like I'm always looking for the intersection of, is your practice better and you're having more fun? And are your patients grateful and feel like what you really want your patients to say is, I don't even know what they charge me and I don't care because I'm so confident that he's always looking out for my best interests. So back to your point about, I didn't know that he did veneers, or I didn't know that he does implants, or I didn't know, that he does whitening or whatever it is, bleaching that I want. You know, your obligation to your patient is to understand why they're coming to you and what things they might be thinking about, and to give them ideas, right? When I go to we had this interior decorator come to help. My son still had the bunk beds that were in his sister's rooms 20 years ago, and we thought we should give him a big boy bed and everything. So we asked this woman to come in and just help with his room. And then she said, do you mind if I give you a suggestion about your floor? And then, of course, where this goes, right? Now we redid the whole downstairs. We repainted the whole house. We have all new lighting, because she kept pointing out things that she'd say, my other clients have found that this, whatever it is, lights or painting it a lighter color, or putting new knobs on or redoing the floors makes such a huge difference for that. Let me show you some pictures, like back to your pictures thing. Why wouldn't my dentist say, I could do veneers for you. I could bleach. A lot of people your age are doing veneers, or it seems like blah blah blah. Can I help you with that? I'm up for it.
yeah, and one of the guys who blew my mind the earliest was the veneer king of the world in Manhattan. His name was Larry Rosenthal, and I went out there in the 80s. And because when you're young, you think, well, who buys all the cosmetic stuff? It's all young, hot women. And his entire practice was like 80-year-old Manhattan Jewish women. And his line was, my God, if you did veneers, everyone would think you're 65. And they would just throw $50,000 out of it. And I'm sitting here at that young age thinking, well, I would have suggested to a 85-year-old woman that she should have cosmetic dentistry, but that 85-year-old woman has more money than any 18-year-old or 28-year-old. She's not paying student loans. Her kids are gone. If she's lucky, her husband passed on. I mean, she's
She has discretion.
free. She
And
has money.
25-year-old girls look beautiful without any work. And as you
Well,
get older, you have to work a little harder.
the funny thing, I read some amazing research on that. I mean, real research that the deal, it's 13 years. If you're 93 and you see an 80-year-old, she's 13 years younger, that's a perfect 10. By the time she's 13 years younger than you, she's perfect. And I still don't know what to do. I mean, so I'm in Phoenix, Arizona. I got all these retirees. And when an 85-year-old guy pulls out a picture of this girl on his wall and he's showing you, it's like he's bragging, and you're like, okay, she has a liver spot and I have more hair than she does, but you're supposed to, I guess it's a guy thing. You're like, she's a beauty. But I'm sitting here for the last 30 years. Like, how do you, because you just can't tell an 80-year-old man, like, dude, she's 80. You're making me sick. Quit doing that. And now I'm 55. It's like now any girl under 30 looks like she
Your
should be
son's wife, right? Your
yeah,
son's
like
kid,
in a
yeah.
nursery school or something.
Yeah.
So it's all just relative. And when you're 85 years old and your husband died and you're going back to your 50-year class reunion,
Well,
and
any age. And men too. I mean, the thing that I'm noticing, I mean, you're talking about cosmetic dentistry. I mean, men are doing it too. People, I mean, this is the thing. I bet whoever's listening out here, if you said to a 55-year-old man, forget the 86-year-old woman, if you said to a 55-year-old man, you know what, there's a couple of new techniques that I think would it would brighten up your face and lighten up, it's natural that your teeth yellow with age, and I can brighten up your smile. I can fix some of those chips and you look like $1 million. Are you interested in that? I bet you 1 in 3 people will say yes, maybe more. And nobody will be offended that you offered.
yeah, what I do is I just pick a table and I unscrew the light bulb by that table and just make it real dark so they can't see me. And then it's all good. And then I just want to, I can't believe we went over an hour, but I want to end this show. Every time I end the show on the same thing. I love my homies. I love them. I get it. I mean, I'd rather pull 4 wisdom teeth than play golf any day of the week. I mean, I love dentistry. But the bottom line is, here's what my homies do. They won't blink at dropping $150,000 next week at the Sorona meeting. They won't blink at dropping $150,000 on a 3D X-ray machine, or $100,000 on a Lanap laser machine. Hell, that could cost all the way to $135, $140. And then you sit there and said this little old measly $5,000, $20,000, and it's the only thing that always has a return on investment. The only thing that you always get all your money back is a consultant. Everybody who's my age, who's got a $2, $3, $4 million office, anybody my age who's taken home $350 to $750 a year, you wouldn't say, well, do you recommend this consultant? They'd say, dude, I've used every consultant in dentistry over the last 3 years. I've never given a consultant $1 that by the end of the year, I didn't get my dollar back. But when I decided to get into implants, about $150,000 CBCT, about $50,000 of equipment, went all this training, and 3 years later, I'd only placed 9 implants. I mean, they dug themselves $250,000 in debt, and they've only gotten $3,000 back. Then here's a guy across the street who says, you know what, I'm in Phoenix. We'll just have some periodontist from Tucson drive up once a month. I'll load up all my implants. I'll pay him 50% of whatever he does, and I'm not going to learn how to place implants and all that stuff like that. I'm going to focus on my team, my customers, my business. Those are always the ones that make the most money. Yeah. If you're sitting there thinking, I don't know if I want to drop $5,000, $20,000 on a consultant. No, you should drop $5,000 to $20,000 on a consultant, and then next year get a different one, or I bring them back, or whatever. I mean, by the time you're my age, by the time you're a grandpa, my 4 boys turned into 5. My four problems have now turned into 5 great-grand problems. And but the bottom line, if by the time you have 5 grandchildren, if you haven't used 5 consultants, then you're not even going to be above average. I mean, put your money, and I get it. I mean, imagine a restaurant. Here's my last analogy. Imagine a restaurant. It's going bankrupt in Silicon Valley, and the guy says, well, you know, the problem is we're an Italian restaurant. We sell lasagna, but we need to add, what's in another Italian dish? Alfredo.
Right.
We need
an Alfredo recipe. Yeah.
Yeah. If I just went to this $5,000 weekend course and came back and added fettuccine Alfredo to my menu, my failing restaurant would go under. It's like, no, dude, I'm pretty sure. I mean, it's crazy stuff. Your restaurant's going under for all the business, the experience, how people felt that they want to come back.
The restaurant's dirty. The waiter's not nice. It's in the middle of nowhere.
I've been in this little bitty neck of the woods. It's Phoenix, Arizona. It's called Ahwatukee. Everybody here calls it Ahwatukee. There's only 3 restaurants that have survived here 30 years that my dental office have. One is CK's, one is Bobetti's, and then the other one across the street from my office. And all 3 of them, same owner, same waiter. I mean, my waiter, when I go sit down at Bobetti's, I know my waiter was born in Utah. He was in the Marine Corps for 12 years. I mean, I've known this guy for 15, 20 years. I mean, it's just so easy to be successful. But my homies will say, oh, that's the soft, fluffy stuff. I need to learn how to do bone grafting and pull impacted wisdom teeth. It's like, dude, I can.
That's what they like to do.
Yeah, and I get it. But I could pay a monkey to come in and do that. I mean, I could find oral surgeons in the next county over to do. I can find someone to do all the dentistry. Hell, there's a guy out in California named Stephen Thorne. He's not even a dentist, and he owns 500 dental offices. What do you think he was concentrating on? And then one of my mentors, Herb Kelleher, he never became a pilot. Right. He said, why would I spend my time being a pilot? I can hire 10,000 pilots. Right. I spend all my time on making sure that when you write Southwest Airlines, she's going to crack you up, she's going to laugh, blah, 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 you know, his whole career. But if he would have been a dentist, he would have spent his whole career chasing flight certifications. Well, I want to certify on a 727, and then a 737, and a 747, and a 757, and an Airbus, and an L1011, and I want to go visit. I mean, he would have spent his whole life mastering every weird air pilot thing, and you would have never heard of Southwest Airlines. So who built the biggest airline of my lifetime? A guy who never even went to pilot school. And then here's Steve Thorne in California with 500 dental offices. His dad's a dentist. And they said, well, are you going to go to be a dental school? and be like your dad. And he goes, why would I spend 8 years of my life being a dentist? I could hire a dentist in 8 minutes on Craigslist. I mean, you know, so hey, thank you for all you do. Thank you for coming on my show. Thank you for being a townie. I'm your biggest fan, and my entire management team is in love with your book. And the recurring revenue model is the way to go, and you're leading that parade. Thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Oh, thanks for having me. It was a lot of fun. Great to
right.
spend time with you.
All right. See you on the boards.
All right.